Hi, and welcome back to Box Office Maniacs. We are now on week 3, episode 3 of Beware the Batman. So, episode 1 brought us Professor Pig and Mr. Toad, and episode 2 brought us Magpie, and now we get to episode 3, and we have yet another new villain to the show, and that is Anarchy. First, let me say that Anarchy looks really good. I like his design a lot. I wasn't so much crazy about his character in this episode, though. Unlike Mr. Toad and Professor Pig and Magpie, Anarchy just seemed kind of more of a boring type of villain, I guess you can say. Basically, what he did in this episode was he got two punks, and both of these guys would like spray paint buildings and whatnot, and he kind of used them for his own anarchy. Which, I mean, it was okay idea, I guess, but these two guys were just kind of goofs, and they weren't very interesting characters. And the whole just story of Anarchy, I just felt kind of fell flat. They did have some really interesting new things going on with Bruce Wayne's bodyguard, Katana. In this episode, basically Bruce Wayne is trying to test her out to see, what her skill level is and what her detective level is. When you first watch this episode, you're kind of like, oh great, he's going to tell her he's Batman. Oh, you caught me, I'm Batman. The smart part of this episode comes in where Bruce Wayne actually outsmarted her. Because when it happens, you're watching this, you're like, okay, she's figured out where the Batcave is because she's intelligent. And she goes down there, and it's not the Batcave. So that was really kind of a cool part of this episode. So her character continues to be really interesting on the show. Unlike Anarchy, this week's villain. I'm not really sure what it was about Anarchy that just didn't really thrill me. Even though the character itself looked cool, what he was doing just wasn't all that interesting. And they actually pulled something right out of the second Christopher Nolan movie, The Dark Knight Returns. He gave Batman two choices. Like, okay, you can save these people, or you can save these people. And that was all right. I thought that was pretty cool that they did something like that. And Batman figured out, the way to do it. Something about the episode just left me cold.
Tonight's forecast. A freeze is coming.
We did get to see the Batmobile because last week I was complaining that, we never got to really see the Batmobile. Even though we didn't really get to see it again this week, one of the guys that Anarchy was using, he gave a chainsaw to go, wreak havoc on the city, and he's sitting there trying to cut up the Batmobile with a chainsaw, and that was pretty funny. And speaking of the Batmobile, we also got to see a few new gadgets from Batman here, and that was the Bat-Cycle. Wow, that's awesome. There were some really cool moments in here, mostly coming from Katana, and not so much from this week's villain, which kind of fell flat for me. Mostly it was just about Bruce Wayne trying to send his bodyguard through a bunch of tests to kind of see what she was capable of doing. And then you had kind of almost like the side thing of Anarchy going on, which, really wasn't all that exciting. So I'm really hoping that next week's episode gets back to where the first and second episode was. And I really don't care to see if Anarchy ever again. Like Professor Pig and Mr. Toad and Magpie, I really want to see those characters again and see what they do with them. But Anarchy, yeah, he's just not my kind of villain, or just the way they portrayed him in here. Maybe if they bring him back and do something really cool with him, it'll be interesting. But right now, he just seemed kind of more of a lame, hey, you guys do all my dirty work for me, and I'm going to run away and do nothing. Wasn't a terrible episode. There were good points, but mostly Anarchy was kind of trying to be the main focus of the story. And being that he wasn't all that great in this episode, I would have to give this episode...
Holy razor's edge, was that a close shave?
A 2.5 out of 5. So I hope next week gives us a much better villain and hopefully a much better storyline. So still a great show. I mean, yeah, like I said, not every episode could be great, but I'm really hoping it's going to pick up in the next episode. And to find out if it does or not, make sure you tune back in, because I will be with you guys next week again to review the 4th episode of Beware the Batman.
Bravo. I believe this game just got interesting.